Hey guys, this is Shivam here, and as we have been talking a lot about prompt engineering and LLM challenges, and today we have a very special guest with us. Meet Akshat. He has worked at Citigroup, MatsAI, Instaminutes. I personally know him for last 5 to 6 years. He has been sharing lots of great details on NLP, AI, and generative AI over the LinkedIn. I follow all those posts and everything. So let's not wait anymore. Let's hear about the man from himself. So Akshat, uh, please share more details about you and your work
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Instaminutes.
sure, Shivam. First of all, thank you for inviting me for this podcast. And I am really excited because I have been following your channel for quite a bit, quite some time. And I was eager to speak to you. Yeah, so for the fam, I am Akshat and I am working with Instaminutes right now. I lead all the AI tech there, and I have been looking in the recent trends in LLM, and yeah, working closely with prompt engineering, and hope you all find my inputs helpful to you in your life.
Definitely. That's really great actually. So Akshat, what kind of LLM projects currently are you working on?
Yeah, so right now at the Instaminutes, we are trying to, as you know, Instaminutes do summaries and insights for your meeting. So we had our own models, but since there is a shift in the technological landscape, so we are also trying to incorporate various LLMs like GPT and Bison from and Palm from Google into our to do the summarization for our meeting transcripts.
Okay, great. And like, how many projects have you worked before? Is this your first project, or there are any other projects have you worked before?
To be very honest, this is my first serious project. When ChatGPT came, as many of our people was doing, so I also did some kind of email writing on everything on ChatGPT. I have been using Copilot, which also use the similar tech, and I have also used ChatGPT using prompts for generation of various codes. But as far as a feature for a company is concerned, this is my first project into it in LLMs.
Great, definitely, yeah. I think I've been meeting a lots of people, and I see most of them are working on the first project since it's a really new field. So let's talk more about your team size, since lots of people want to become a prompt engineer, LM engineer. So what is your team size, and what kind of AI experts do you have in your team with this project?
Yeah, so right now our team size is 4 person. Okay, we
Okay.
have a 4 person team for AI ML, and most of them are after me. There is one person who leads all these AI projects, and then there are 2 person who does all this model training, tuning, and testing for us. Right now, our team comprises mainly people who are adept in ML algorithms and research. So, as I mentioned, we as a company are trying to venture into the field of LLMs and trying to see any use case there. So, yeah, right now our team is trying on, they are trying their own hands-on on prompt engineering, and
Okay.
yes, we are growing day by day in the field, I would say.
Great. So, like, if we are getting it correctly, then it's still your team and you are still exploring the use cases of LLMs using internal projects.
Yeah, that's correct, right?
So, let's say, like, there are two buzzwords around, like, in the community right now, like prompt engineering and fine tuning LLM. So, which one have you tried, or which one is working with you, like, for you?
That is a very nice question. So first we thought so as I mentioned, we were using Chat GPT for our projects and everything. But right now what we did is like initially the whole landscape was training your own model and everything. So we got stuck into that dilemma initially that okay, we need to train our own whole model and everything from on our end, which as fine tuning. Okay, but
Hmm.
as the time passed, we saw that okay, this fine tuning is really not necessary for each and every project. The main game is around prompt engineering. If you pass a really good prompt, then the existing models are powerful enough, which can give you a
Yes.
very good output.
Hmm.
Okay, so now we have focused, we have shifted our focus mostly in adapting our user, as I mentioned earlier as well, in adapting our, team in the prompt engineering and doing better and better prompts every day. We are learning each day.
Great, great. So, what do you think? What are the key challenges that you are facing while doing the prompt engineering?
First of all, when we come as prompt engineering, so initially I was in the sense that okay, OpenAI came with their API and there is just one way to try it out. So, but now the things are changing really fast. Hugging Face with his framework and APIs, they are giving access to various open source model as well. Google have their own Vertex and SDK. So now it is more about the main challenge we have to face is like how do we track various prompts across different models, which are scattered on different websites, different SDKs. Some we have to set up in form of code and everything.
What were the key challenges that you were facing while you were doing prompt engineering?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the key challenges we were facing in the prompt engineering is was like all the models are scattered across different platforms, and some of them have playground, some do not have the playground also, and some of the models are just open source lying there. They are not even hosted or provided by API. Okay, so for some we have to create our own playground. So that is the I think the main challenge we have to face, and that's why sometimes we get satisfied with uh, very few models as well. So this is one of the challenge. Another challenge which I can think of is like writing good prompts. Again, as I mentioned, this is something new for our team. And team is still learning. But I find that like writing prompt is slightly different from normal English and the conversation we used to do. So that is why we are not pretty sure like what we are writing is good or bad just by stating like seeing the prompt we have written. So we have to wait for the output. And when I talk about the output, the main challenge is like we have to manually go through each and every output, checking if the output is good or bad. There are some metrics, but I think most of them require ground truth, and that is why like again, and that ground truth I think is very difficult to make without bias, and hence we are right now what we are doing is stuck to the like basic human verification method, like going through each and every output one by one. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you are working on an LLM project, you are building an LLM. So typically, how many inputs that you experiment?
Can you go again?
How many different input do you play with while doing your prompt?
How many different input? What do you mean by inputs?
So input is basically, let's say, if you want to build it something for, let's say, a trip planning, then you are giving, okay, give me a trip plan for, let's say, Malaysia, and you are again trying it with different countries, India, America. So all these things are different input that would be given by the user.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand now. So typically, there is not a number as per se, but yes, you are right in saying like when we write a prompt. So first we have for the first iteration when usually we are selecting the models or writing the first prompts. So usually we have one or two inputs for which we run on different platforms, test out different models. Once we have verified, then we have shortlisted 10 to 20 prompts or models, like combination of those, then what we need to do is like we really need to run like 100 or 200 of inputs and see if the result is consistent across all the inputs. um, and sometimes I think of the way is like even we have selected the models and the initial prompt as well, then also like if we have to run inputs across all the models and all the prompts. So yes, and then we have to manually check all the outputs as well. Yeah, so I think this is the pipeline that we have at place at this moment.
And let's say 100 inputs are there. So how many different prompts that you are iterating with in a particular process? Any estimated number?
Yeah, so I can only give estimates. So as I mentioned, so initially we start with writing. As I mentioned, with one input we start with 15 to 16 prompts, and then we shortlist 8 to 10 of them for which we see the initial output to be very good. By prompt, I mean like like different inputs might be there. Like let's say prompt one have one input of place, another prompt have another input of country. Yeah, so we try to play with different variables as well, or inputs you can say. And yes, and that's how we total of 15 to 16 prompts we have to play in a single iteration, at least 15 to 16 prompts.
Say 100 and you are doing it in two phases, like you are learning it for certain, then you are again learning it for certain. And how many models do you create? Like how many models do you test?
How many models? As I mentioned, as of now, what we are doing is like we are really stuck with few models, like 3 or 4 models, which have their OpenAI their API is readily available, and in mostly Python. If the API and the SDK is available in Python, we are just playing with those models. But we have also adopted few of Hugging Face APIs for open source as well. uh, we are trying to like if it would have been possible, then yeah, right now we are playing with say 6 to 8 models, but we would have loved to play with much more open sources and other models. So that is the case right now.
So as you can see, like if you are running the same, you are running around 100 from 100 into like 15 to 16 from that time 15 to 1600 output, and now around 4 to 5 models that give us somewhere 8,000. So how much time did it take for you to do all these iterations, this 8,000 prompt experiment and compare with this?
This is a very interesting question. So how much time depends upon how complex is the output actually.
So
And
how much time it took when you want?
yeah, so for our first prompt of summarization, like the first iteration when we did, it took us around 25 to 30 days to establish all the pipelines and read each and every output on across different platforms, because as I mentioned, you have to go through outputs at different places and then comparing by changing tabs. And if we change prompt, then we have to store somewhere the previous outputs. So it makes the process somewhat tedious. And initially for the first iteration we had to train our people have to be trained to be adapted to this new pipeline. Yeah, so I can say like first iteration took us around 1 month, across 1 month.
And how many iterations it will be next?
Like right now, this is our third iteration. So second iteration actually it took more or less similar same time, because what is because again the prompts were there. We now and the pipeline was all set. People were using in the end user were also using. So what we wanted to do is like give them the best. So we wanted to optimize the output, and hence we ramped up the number of prompt we are trying out. And also now we were trying out on some real world data as well. So yeah, number of inputs also ramped up. We wanted to track performance across different like real world example more also. because the initial set of inputs were more or less synthesized, and that's why we wanted to be more reliable this time. So it took mostly same amount of days.
So as you mentioned, like you have done three iterations for one. Typically, in a one iteration, you get at least you run around 8,000 different particular combinations, and now three months of three iterations, that would be somewhere around 25,000 combinations. So do
Yeah.
you document everything, or do you feel document is necessary or it is not?
So as I mentioned, document is absolutely necessary in this case, because as I mentioned, because you have to run different prompts on the same input or different output. Even if there is a playground, then also you need to keep changing the inputs, see the output. You have to compare the outputs. So when you change the inputs or you change the prompt on the same playground, you need to have the previous prompts and output stored somewhere. So right now, what we are doing is like we have a common Notion, document, and we store our. So it's more like a database. You can say Notion database, and we have we store all our outputs there, like the prompt we used, model we used, and the output it brought, along with the different inputs we used, what we pass in transcript and everything. So we document everything so that in case we want to refer again on the same transcript ID or something, so we can refer it from there.
So I can see that it's really a tedious task. So let's say for one iteration when you were launching the 1 month. So how much time of that 1 month went into documenting all this?
I think major part, so the amount of time second iteration is run. So when you enter a prompt and send the request, to those LLMs to bring out the response. So meanwhile, the response is coming. What we need to do is like we have to copy paste everything. So I think it is like 1 to 2 minutes per prompt or more. I can say, because again it's a human task. We're prone to errors. So I think it takes more time. So actually, almost half of the time I can say goes into all this documentation and everything. And then also you need to be sure like this documentation is correct, or you have just because of fatigue or human error you have not copied bad information or something like that.
And any way to measure that, you like any way to reduce that, how to make it more efficient?
Can
Any
you go
idea,
again?
please? Any idea in your mind right now to make it much more efficient this documenting process? Because our audience here is also struggling with the same thing. I have been getting similar questions from our community that, hey, how can we document everything really easily? Because document is a key pain point for them. So, any idea that you would like to suggest to our community
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
do it?
sure. Yes, sir. Sure. So the thing is like one can build their own pipeline. So the response when comes, it automatically goes into some document. So you can write some Python script or something like that. But the end of the day, it is like documentation is just one part of it, and uh, the major concern is like going through that documentation. Comparing different outputs.
Checking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And again, as I mentioned, so again one can say like one can write a script to read different outputs from the same document and compare it. So the main thing is like in that process is, as I mentioned, the metrics out there is is more suited to contextually similar outputs. Okay, now
So,
in
as
case.
they have mentioned KPI, so what type of KPIs or quality KPIs are you using to compare your outputs? How you are doing?
So right now, as I mentioned, we are not using any KPIs. As I mentioned, like the KPIs out there are more suited for contextually similar outputs. What I feel is like when a generative AI is at play, the output is more like something like contextually they are different. It like you can take example of while writing your answers in your school days or college days for the same question, because again this is a subjective thing. So this for the same question you can have two very different answers and both of them can make sense. Okay, contextually they can be very different. So it is, and it is just the human, the teacher examining it. So they know like these two answers are correct. So I think right now again, there are some metrics out there like you can use rogue and everything, but I don't know how much effective it. And this is the go-to, rogue and blue. These are go-to for summarizing, especially these are go-to metrics for this task, but I don't think they work very well in case of generative AI landscape. Just because of the benefit of the measuring criteria they used. Yeah. So right now, if you ask us, so what we are doing is like we have to manually judge each another output. And the other thing is like if we want to measure, use those criteria, they all want the ground truth. Now writing summarization for all these things like manually to make a benchmark, it's slightly on the difficult side. So yeah, but again, because each answer is subjective, they are prone to human bias and everything. So yes, just applying metric without human touch point, I think it is very difficult at this point in generative AI.
So let's take this to the another level. So during experiment, we can have long after doing lots of hard work for sure. But what do you think? Like when we are developing a technique, when we are proceeding to the production and the actual users are using the program, then what do you think? How important it is to measure that quality? Like how users are feeling about the output that they are getting. What do you think? How much that thing is important?
Yeah, so that is, I think that is very important. The whole purpose of bringing out the feature or using anything related to LLM is at the end of the day to satisfy customer needs. Okay, and if my customer is not happy, then I think I have not made the feature good. By not making feature good, I mean I have not used maybe the not the correct LLM, or the prompt is not up to the mark, or the way we decided like this is going to be correct, maybe that is wrong. People want some different outputs or something like that. So yeah, but at the end of the day, user feedback is very important for our use case. I think it is very important for any generative AI or AI application in general, like because again everything is like not 100% sure. So you need some kind of human confirmation that okay, the output which you are giving is really up to the mark.
So any way or any framework that you would like to share in our talk on how to implement that.
So right now what we have is like we have given a thumbs up, thumbs down on our app. So at the point of summarization and all those analysis. So if the user likes that summarization, they gives a thumbs up. So and we track all those thumbs up. So yeah, I think that is the
How
way.
many users are giving this particular feedback? What percentage of users
What percentage of user? Again, I have to see the like for an accurate number, I have to see some data. But
just an
if
estimate?
yeah, for this, I will take a guess here, and I think around 28 to 29% of users give feedback. Actually, this number was a bit lower initially, but what we have did is like, especially for the new users, what we do is like for first few days, we whenever they switch after seeing the notes, if they switch to some other page or tab or something like that, we give them alert that okay, please review the output. So in this way, our feedback number of feedbacks have increased. Yeah, so that is the current status.
So do you think like and how do you manage this number of feedbacks data?
How do you manage? So yeah, so we have like our own. So we store these feedbacks in our own database, and then and then we also have a analytics tool applied so for overall calculations and all those things. And when we get a feedback, so how do we use it? Is like when so we know for which summary and everything, the feedback was poor or it was good. So for good, we usually do not do anything. But if there is a poor feedback, so again we have to manually go and see the output, like what was the output there, and we have to judge manually that why this output could be deemed as poor or something like that.
Since we're talking a lot about manually checking the text indirect route. So, as a human, how you are judging? Let's say you are reading in your case, you are reading a particular summary. How you are judging that okay, this output is good, this output is bad, this output is average. How
Again, that depends upon which team member is doing it. If they think it is good. Again, as I mentioned, there are no metrics out there which is not prone to. Whenever you have this
I'm
human in
talking
the,
about thought process. Like definitely there's no KPI, there's no paper, but like when I'm reading and judging it, okay, this is the thought process behind it, how we are judging it, anything of that.
yeah, so if you ask me when I judge it, so what I think, so I have asked my team as well to follow these, basic pointers, especially for summarization. The one thing is like we want to do is like the output should be, contextually somewhat similar to the input we have given. Okay, so for it in this case, the summary, the generated summary should have information from the meeting itself. It should not generate outside of it. Again, the second thing which we see is like the output should be accurate. The data, especially the data points, they should not be some random numbers or some random information in that case. The third point, which is very important for us, is the how clear is the output. Like sometimes you write a very complex English. It's a good English, but it does not make sense. Okay, so I think I usually judge from, because again we are not the part of meeting, so I do not know the exact inputs. But judging by this, so these are the basic parameters we take to say that okay, this information, like for some information, it really seems vivid. So that's how we judge it. Mainly, it is based on the clarity, how clear the output is, and how like contextually similar to the some part of the text it is. So that's how we judge it actually.
Right. Okay, so now since we are moving towards the end of the podcast, so before we got love to know, like let's say there are lots of potential, like lots of prompt engineering, we have lots of AI features. So what are the different roles, or let's say in your case, how you keep yourself updated towards the trend of generating AI and then what is
Can you make the question more clear?
yeah. So basically, we have lots of people who are prompt engineering enthusiasts, AI enthusiasts, who want to become a prompt engineer expert
Yeah.
or AI expert eventually. So what do you do to be that, and what they should do to become that in you?
Yeah. Great question. Based on the current scenario. Yeah. So what they need to do, I think what they need to do is like they can start, writing some of the prompts on the Chat GPT first. uh, yeah, they can see the output. They can start with very minimal things like write an email to my boss, okay, or later to my for my resignation. Like again, the topic you can choose, but write with basic emails. If you're a developer, you can start with some code bases. You can ask suggestion. You can ask to write code from it. For a marketer, you can start with web content. You can give the basic idea of your website and see what contents it generates. Once you are pretty sure, like your content, your prompts are working on Chat GPT or Bard, then I would say, and if you're really interested in this field, not just a prompt engineering, but deploy ML application, LLM application to provide to your users or some features around it, then I think you need to start exploring the playgrounds of these open source, like API, OpenAI APIs, Google. palm and everything. So use the playgrounds, uh, play with more, temperature parameters like temperature and all those things. That way you can see like if you can manipulate the outputs, get rid of some of the commonly occurring problems like uh, repeat sentences, or hallucinations. So these kind of thing, check if you can use those configs to get rid of these things in your prompts, especially. Uh, yeah, I think this is the way to go. And then if you're ready with the features, then it's as I mentioned, like it's a all-out effort. Like go run on different inputs, on different, check it out. Yeah, so it's a high like long efforts from there, but for initiation, as I mentioned, like anybody can start on it. It's so easy at this moment.
Great. So, so before we end, anything else you would like to share with our community members?
And like if there is any specific question, but I think we have covered almost everything. I cannot think of any point which I missed in this segment. So yeah, if there is some question from any of your user, then yeah.
Definitely. So we will track the comments in our YouTube, and we will let you know through LinkedIn like what are the key questions that they are asking, and then we will reply them accordingly.
Sure, sure. Great.
Okay then, Akshat. It was really nice chatting with you on prompt LLMs and the challenges, and we really got to learn a lot of new things today, and it will definitely help our community members a lot. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Likewise, and all the best to everyone.
So, guys, that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet to stay updated on emerging prompt engineering and LLM trends. Also, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave your questions in the comment section that you want us to discuss in our next podcast episode. And remember to share this podcast with anyone who might find it helpful. Stay tuned for more engaging conversations next week. Bye bye.